So my name is Dennis Marvel. I'm one of the managing partners and a director of Fortune Practice Management. When I was young, high school and college, I started two businesses, and one of them failed, and I learned a ton from that one. One of them was amazingly successful, and I sold that right before my oldest son was born, and then got recruited into the Wall Street world. And when I started, I was really focusing on the world of doctors who own surgery centers, and I found out that they really wanted a lot of help on the business planning side. And so I started preparing workshops and seminars and things way back then. But as time went by, I kind of rose through the ranks in the financial world, making kind of the vice president level at two Fortune 50 financial firms. And when I left that, I was really trying to have a large impact on medicine. And in there, our CEO of Fortune Management reached out to me, and we started talking about my joining the firm. And what I found is in the world of dentistry, it's really amazing because in big corporations, I was leading really large teams. Now, the reality is I was leading a small team that led a larger team that led a larger team. And so I really learned how to scale and grow businesses a lot. And when I got into the clinical dentistry world, what I learned is that no matter how big your organization is, whether it's one practice or 100, it's still about team culture at the practice level and impacting individuals' lives. And so not only can we create really amazing business results, but we can actually create an environment and a culture that can highly impact your team members' lives and your patients' lives, thus impacting kind of the rest of the world. We don't know how far the ripple effect goes. The biggest challenge most dentists face is that they're never educated in the financial operations of their business. Their entire education is based on their clinical skills. And then they get out and they get into the world of private practice, and 2 years in, they realize, I'm a manager of all these systems, I'm a leader of all these people, I have a business that is generating a lot of revenue. I just don't understand the mechanics under it. So the first step is to really understand those things and work with those. And that's one of the things that I love doing with clients, is helping them understand, because of my background in financials, I can break this down and make it really easy to understand. And not only easy to understand, but to understand that the financial side of things is really a lagging indicator. And if they know what the leading indicators they really want to focus on, that drives that lagging result, meaning money in the bank and profitability, that can really change the world pretty dramatically and increase profitability a bunch. The most impactful KPIs out there are the ones that really drive the highest and the fastest result to the bottom line. And so the first is schedule utilization. If you've got holes in your schedule, you're losing a lot of profitability right out of the gate, because you're still got all the expenses going on, except for maybe you're not using as much supplies, but you're still paying all the employees, you're still paying the lease on the building or your mortgage payment on that building. Those costs do not go away when you have an empty unit, and that really creates a big drag on a practice. And so understanding how to really build a hyper-effective schedule that impacts the financials is super important. The second is the cash flow of the business and really understanding those kinds of things. And there are so many points in the whole financial process in a dental practice that if any one of those is out of whack, it actually creates quite a drain on the financial performance of the business. So oftentimes it's not closing this big gigantic gap and redoing everything from the ground up. A lot of times it's little tweaks here and there, closing the gaps, making things more efficient and more effective. And that can create a really massive result in a pretty short period of time. There's really two primary areas that a doctor needs to look to have the fastest and the most dramatic impact on their business overall and their profitability. The first is obviously the schedule. If you've got team members that are idle, and you've got open appointments in your schedule, chairs that are sitting unutilized, that's a huge drag on the business. Take hygiene as an example. If it's a PPO practice, the profitability on hygiene appointments is really thin these days. So if you've got a hygienist that has one or two holes in her schedule that day, that actually reduces all the profitability to just about zero out of that entire column for the day. And if it's doctor time, it's even more dramatic, because now you've got the doctor with an idle hour and is still paying all the expenses that occur in the business before that hour gets filled. The second, I would say, is really driving the productivity of those appointments. So you start with a really well-formed schedule, and I count schedule utilization at a 90% level as being a very well-designed schedule. That's looking backwards, not forwards into the future. So now that you've got that done, you want to look at the productivity of each hour and each unit in the schedule. Are you being as productive as possible? Are you combining as many procedures as can be done? Are you utilizing all your team members to really help yourself become more productive? Now, whether you're a single doctor or a doctor in a group practice or somebody who owns 20 practices, the biggest challenge in the world of dentistry as you grow your business is learning how to scale yourself. And that's something I really focus on a lot. They have a challenge on the financial side, number one, only because they don't have any training. And everybody thinks that the finance and the operations side of the business are kind of mysterious, and they're really not. It's easy to understand. You just have to understand the language that the financial world uses. Think of, as a dentist, you have a lot of lingo and a lot of acronyms and things you use that non-clinicians don't understand. Well, the financial world is the same way. So just understanding the basics first is really, really important. The things that they tend to overlook are the tiny little things, the little 10% moves that can have really dramatic impact on the overall profitability of the business. And we have to look at it both in time units and in percentage, because that's what creates the overall effect of a highly productive and highly profitable practice. So I love the topic of team culture. That's actually one of my favorites, because most doctors don't recognize that the culture is the most important thing that determines their ability to really have fantastic patient relationships, because patients don't really understand the clinical care they're providing unless, of course, something goes wrong. And so they're making judgments about the doctor and about the practice based on all the other interactions they have. Everything from the phone call to the way they're greeted to the way it looks when the patient walks through the front door. Is there a really calm vibe to it, or is it frenetic and frantic? And so I actually spend a lot of time working with doctors to create the most amazing culture and teaching them the leadership that does that. Now, where that intersects on the business side is understanding that there are certain metrics that I can see that tell me exactly what's going on culturally in the practice. If we have high no-show rates, as an example, that indicates usually a lack of relationship and bonding with the team and, proper language when you're having discussions with them. And I can identify, 10 or 20 different metrics for every single practice that are the key things that show us how healthy that culture is. Uncertainty in the business world is an ever-present thing because nobody can really predict the future. Now, if you're looking at uncertain times economically, it's first off important to know that the business of dentistry is very resilient and somewhat recession resistant. So if things slow down, a really good doctor and team does not have to participate in that. If I think back to 2007, 2008, which was the last time we had a really severely contracting economy, most doctors chose not to participate and actually grew their practice during those periods of time. So you don't have to be subjected to what's going on in the outside world. You can actually create an environment that causes your practice to grow no matter what the economic environment is or what's going on in the world. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to impact you, but when things change, you have to change your response to those, and that's actually what creates the result. My business planning process was born out of my time in the Wall Street world because I'd gotten promoted to the point where I was on the road all the time. I was spending a ton of hours at work, and that left me a little unfulfilled on the personal side of things. So I actually start strategic planning with developing a comprehensive life plan for every client that we update every single year. And that's more about not just where you want to live or what kind of car you want to drive. It is what is the experience you want to have in life? What are the things that you want for your family? And what's the impact you want to leave on the world that that really is going to make you super fulfilled? Then we create a strategic business plan to make sure that all those things can actually be achieved. And then each year we create a tactical business plan that breaks down what we're going to do each and every month and each and every week of the year to ensure the strategic plan is accomplished. And when you do that, and you do it on a very time-conscious method, applying the appropriate amounts of time to all the areas of your life that you need to be at a certain level to be fulfilled, it really does create an extraordinary life. There's two that always come to mind, although there's hundreds of them because I work with clients all over the country. But these two in particular started in a very similar place. I met those doctors probably 12, 14 years ago. And both of them were fairly new practice owners, 2 to 3 years in. They had relatively small facilities, and they really had an idea that they wanted to create a larger impact in their communities. And that was very crucial to identifying what was their why. And each one of these doctors had a very specific why on why they wanted to grow their business, what it was going to mean to them, and what it was going to mean for their family. Then we started applying those strategies over time, repeatedly, year after year after year. And both of these practices actually started with, one of them had 3 chairs, one of them had 4. The one with 3 chairs, one of the chairs was broken, so she really only had 2. Today, she's in a 32 operatory facility that also has an attached multi-specialty surgical suite. And the amount of impact they've had in that particular community is unbelievable. Their active patient base is actually bigger than a lot of small towns I know. The other one actually went a little bit of a different route, and they built a really impactful practice in this one town and then started replicating that in other parts of the same general area of the country. And so that one has now grown exponentially to 14 practices. And I think they have 40 some odd doctors working in that organization all around, including all the specialists that come in and out of each facility. So applying those kind of things can really create dramatic growth beyond what most doctors understand and what they're taught to do in school. They're taught that if their hands are busy, then they're being productive. But the reality is a doctor can make a lot more out of owning their business than they can as a practitioner, because your ability to do dentistry is just limited by the amount of hours in a day. And so you can only grow that so far once you have your procedure mix and all those things. So it really is focusing on the business metrics that have the largest financial impact for our clients and their lives. The best step is to actually just go to our website. It's at www.fortunemgmt.com, abbreviation for management. And there's a place there where you can actually look and see the coaches in your area. You can look and see our leadership team. If you go to the Fortune 50 division page, that's where you'll find me. And there is a link there that you can actually book a complimentary consultation. And if that turns out to be a good fit and sounds like what you're looking for, those individuals will actually conduct a really complete practice analysis for you that'll break down all the operational and financial aspects of your business, looking for opportunities on how that we can help you and how we can drive results for the highest return on investment for deploying us.